Besides looking like a beggar, you still have the audacity to be late." Claire's words echoed throughout the restaurant like thunder. Her voice was so loud that every person in that elegant place stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped breathing. Everyone was staring at me. They all saw my mud-stained brown dress. They all saw my worn-out shoes. They all saw the elderly woman who had arrived late to meet her future daughter-in-law. But what hurt the most wasn't the public humiliation. What truly broke my soul was seeing my son, Michael, sitting there, motionless, his eyes averted to his plate, as if I were a problem he didn't know how to solve. "My name is Audrey Cole. I am 72 years old, and I've just discovered that the cruelest words of my life wouldn't come from a stranger, but from the woman my son chose to marry. But let me tell you how I got here. How a mother who gave everything ended up being treated like trash on one of the days that should have been the happiest of her life. I live alone in a small apartment in the Bronx. The walls are thin, and I can hear the neighbors arguing at night. The hot water only works 2 days a week. The paint is peeling, and there are mildew stains on the ceiling of my room. But it's my home, the only place I can afford with the miserable Social Security check I receive every month. My husband passed away 15 years ago. I remember him every day. He was a bus driver and worked 12 hours a day so we could eat. He died of a massive heart attack while driving his route. He was only 57 years old. Since then, I've lived alone, accompanied by my memories and the yellowed photographs I keep in a shoebox. Michael is my only son, my everything. I gave birth to him in pain in a public hospital where the nurses were too busy to hold my hand. I raised him with tears and sacrifices that he never knew. I worked cleaning other people's homes while he went to school. I knelt on floors that weren't mine, so he could have notebooks and pencils. I ate scraps so he could have a full plate. Now he is 45. He wears suits that cost more than $1,000. He drives a German car that shines like a mirror. He lives in an apartment in downtown Manhattan that has more rooms than I could count. He works in something related to investments and finance. I don't quite understand what he does, but I know he earns in 1 month what I wouldn't earn in 10 years. His visits grew rare over time. At first he came every week, then every 2 weeks. After that, once a month. Now I'm lucky if I see him every 3 months. He always arrives in a rush, always checking his phone, always with an excuse to leave early. 3 weeks ago, I got his call. It was a Tuesday morning. I was preparing my breakfast, dry toast with watery coffee, when the phone rang. His voice sounded strangely cheerful, almost forced. "Mom, I have wonderful news. I'm getting married." I felt my heart leap out of my chest. My son, getting married. After so many failed relationships, so many girlfriends who came and went, he had finally found someone. Tears streamed from my eyes, and I couldn't control them. "Oh, my love, how wonderful. When can I meet her?" "This Saturday. We're having lunch at a restaurant downtown. She's anxious to meet you. I'll text you the address." I spent the next few days daydreaming. I imagined my future daughter-in-law. A good woman, I thought. A kind-hearted woman who would take care of my son. Someone who might give me grandchildren. Someone with whom I could share recipes and conversations. Someone who could fill the terrible void that had grown in my life like a wound that never heals. Saturday, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep from the excitement. I showered with cold water because it wasn't a hot water day. I dried myself with the frayed towel I've used for years. I stood in front of the small closet in my room and inspected every piece of clothing I own. I don't have many clothes. Most of them are over 10 years old. Some pieces are 20. I chose my best dress, The brown one I bought for my husband's funeral. I had only worn it on 2 other occasions since then. It was a little worn at the elbows, but it was the most elegant thing I owned. I ironed it carefully using the old iron that leaves marks. I did the best I could. I put on makeup with the few cosmetics I possess. A compact powder to cover the age spots. A pink lipstick that barely has any colour left. Mascara that had dried up months ago, but that I could still use if I dampened it a little. I combed my grey hair back and clipped it with the barrettes I use every day. I looked at myself in the cracked bathroom mirror. The wrinkles around my eyes seemed deeper under the harsh light. My hands were shaking a little. "Audrey," I told myself aloud, "your son is getting married. You are going to meet the woman he loves. This is a beautiful day." I left the house 2 hours before the appointment. The restaurant was on the other side of the city, and I could only travel by public transit. I took the bus, number 147, that passed in front of my building every half hour. I paid the fare with coins I had been collecting all week. The bus was packed, as always. People crammed together, mixed smells, crying babies. I held onto the rail tightly as the vehicle shook over every pothole. My knees ached. My arthritis has worsened this past year. But that day, the pain seemed minor. The joy I felt was stronger than any physical discomfort. A young woman offered me her seat after several stops. I thanked her with a smile. I sat down carefully, smoothing my brown dress, holding my old purse against my chest. Inside the purse, I carried only the essentials. My ID, $30 in crumpled bills, an embroidered handkerchief, and a photograph of Michael when he was 5, smiling with his front teeth missing. I got off the bus 40 minutes before the agreed time. I wanted to arrive early. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to look serene and happy when I met Claire. The restaurant was only 3 blocks from the stop. I walked slowly because my legs don't respond like they used to. The sky was grey that morning. It threatened rain, but it wasn't raining. The downtown streets were different from my neighborhood. Everything was cleaner, brighter, more expensive. The stores had elegant window displays. People walked fast, dressed in clothes I had only seen in magazines. It was then that I saw her. An elderly woman was sitting on the sidewalk, leaning against the wall of a building. Her face was completely pale. She was breathing with difficulty. One hand was pressing her chest. Next to her was an overturned shopping bag. Oranges were rolling across the sidewalk. People walked past her without stopping. Some looked at her sideways and sped up. Others didn't even look. Everyone was in a hurry. Everyone had more important places to be. I shouldn't have stopped either. I know. I had an appointment with my son. I was going to meet my future daughter-in-law. I couldn't be late. But something in me couldn't keep walking. Something stronger than my will made me stop. I knelt beside her. The pavement was cold and hard against my knees. "Ma'am, what's wrong? Are you all right?" She opened her eyes with effort. Her gaze was glassy. Her lips were trembling. "My heart," she whispered. "My medicine." "In my bag." I searched through her bag with trembling hands. There were so many things inside. Tissues, crumpled receipts, loose change. Finally, I found the pill bottle. I gave her one and helped her swallow it with water from my own bottle. I stayed by her side. I don't know how much time passed. I held her wrinkled hand in mine. I spoke to her in a soft voice. "Everything is going to be all right. Help is coming. Breathe slowly." Her breathing began to normalize little by little. Color slowly returned to her cheeks. Someone had called an ambulance. I heard the sirens approaching. The paramedics arrived and took her away on a stretcher. She squeezed my hand before letting go. Thank you, she murmured. God bless you. I stood there on the sidewalk. My knees were hurting terribly. There was a large patch of dirt on my brown dress. My hands were dirty. My hair was messed up. I looked at my watch and felt my stomach sink. Half an hour had passed. I was late. Very late. I ran, or at least I tried to run. My legs are not made for running. I walked as fast as I could, almost stumbling, my heart pounding against my ribs. The restaurant appeared before me like a castle of glass and gold. It was beautiful, intimidating. The doors were huge, completely transparent glass. A man dressed in a black uniform held them open. He looked me up and down as I approached. I saw the judgment in his eyes. I walked in. The floor was white marble that shone like a mirror. There were huge crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. The tables were covered with immaculate white tablecloths. People ate in elegant silence, using silver cutlery that glistened under the lights. Everyone turned to look at me when I entered. I felt every gaze like needles sticking into my skin. I saw their eyes travel over my dirty dress, my old shoes, my messed up hair. I heard murmurs. I saw barely disguised, scornful smiles. Then I saw him. Michael was sitting at the back of the restaurant, next to a huge window overlooking the street. And next to him was her, Claire. She was beautiful in a way I had never seen in person. Tall, thin, perfect. Her black hair fell in shiny waves over her shoulders. Her skin was flawless. She was wearing a dress that looked like it cost more than everything I own. Jewels sparkled on her neck and wrists. I walked toward them. Every step echoed in that terrible silence. My legs were shaking. Michael saw me, and something crossed his face. Something dark. Something that broke my heart before any word was spoken. Claire stood up. She rose from her chair with an abrupt movement. Her eyes swept over me with a contempt I had never seen in anyone. And then she said it. She shouted it so the whole restaurant could hear. Besides looking like a beggar, you still have the audacity to be late. The world stopped. I stood paralyzed in front of the woman who was going to be my daughter-in-law. Her words still echoed in my ears like church bells tolling for the dead. Beggar. She had called me a beggar in front of all those elegant strangers who were now looking at me with a mixture of pity and disgust. I looked for Michael's eyes. My son. My only son. The child who had grown in my womb. The baby I had nursed on long, lonely nights. The little boy who had cried in my arms when he had nightmares. I searched his eyes for some sign that he would defend me, that he would tell that woman she couldn't talk to his mother like that. But Michael was staring at his plate. His face was red, tense, ashamed. And I understood at that moment that his shame wasn't because of Claire's words. His shame was because of me, because of my existence, because of my presence in that place where I clearly didn't belong. Claire, please, Michael said in a low voice, almost a whisper. But it wasn't a defense. It was a plea for her to be quiet, for her not to cause any more of a scene, for her not to embarrass him further. I felt something shatter inside my chest. It wasn't a sharp pain. It was something worse. It was as if all the pieces of my heart that I had held together with hope and love were slowly crumbling into dust. I sat down in the empty chair without saying a word. My hands were trembling in my lap. Claire sat back down with a dramatic movement, crossing her legs, taking her wine glass as if nothing had happened. The other diners in the restaurant slowly resumed their conversations, although some were still glancing at us. A waiter approached our table. He offered me the menu with a professional smile, but his eyes judged me just like everyone else's. I opened the menu and felt my stomach sink when I saw the prices. $28 for a salad, $45 for a pasta dish, $60 for a piece of steak. "I'm not hungry," I murmured. "Just water, please." Claire let out a short, cruel laugh. "Of course not. You probably already ate some trash on the way." Michael coughed uncomfortably, but he said nothing. Nothing. My son didn't say absolutely anything to defend me. And in that silence, I understood something terrible. I understood that I had lost my son long before that day. I had lost him somewhere between his first big paycheck and his first expensive suit. I had lost him when he started to be ashamed of the apartment where he grew up. I had lost him when he stopped introducing me to his friends. The lunch passed in a tense silence, interrupted only by Claire's voice. She talked non-stop about the wedding they were planning, a gigantic event in an exclusive ballroom, a designer dress brought from Europe, a honeymoon in the Maldives. Everything cost thousands and thousands of dollars. "The wedding is in 3 months, Claire said, looking at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course you're invited, Audrey, though you're going to have to find something better to wear. We can't have you showing up dressed like a homeless person on our special day." I felt tears welling up behind my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Not in that place. Not in front of all those people. Michael finally spoke. "Mum, there's something we want to suggest." I looked up. My son was looking at me now, but there was something strange in his eyes. Something calculated. Something cold that I had never seen before. "Claire and I have been talking about your situation," he continued. "Living alone at your age isn't safe. That neighborhood where you live is dangerous. The apartment is falling apart. We thought it would be better for you to move to a more appropriate place." I felt a flicker of hope despite everything. Maybe Michael still worried about me. Maybe, despite his silence, there was still love in his heart. "We know a very nice residence," Claire added with a smile that looked rehearsed. "It's for seniors. It has 24-hour nurses, activities, meals included. You'd be very comfortable there." "A nursing home. They wanted to put me in a nursing home." "But I'm fine in my house," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't need anyone to take care of me. I can manage on my own." "Mum, don't be difficult," Michael said with a tone of impatience. "It's for your own good. At your age, anything can happen. You could fall, and no one would know for days. It's the most sensible thing." The most sensible thing. As if I were a problem that needed a practical solution. As if my life, my independence, my wishes didn't matter at all. "Besides," Claire added, leaning forward, "when Michael and I get married, we're going to need more space. We're thinking of buying a bigger house, and frankly, having to worry about you all the time is unnecessary stress for Michael." There it was, the naked, cruel truth. I was a nuisance, a burden, something they needed to get rid of before starting their perfect life together. Memories hit me like furious waves. I remembered Michael at 2 years old, sick with fever, crying in my arms all night, while I put cold compresses on his forehead because we didn't have money to take him to the doctor. I remembered his first steps, his first words, his first day of school when he clung to my skirt, not wanting to let go. I remembered the nights I worked until midnight cleaning offices to pay for his English classes because he wanted to learn. I remembered how I sold the few pieces of jewelry I had, including my wedding ring, to buy him a computer when he started college because all his classmates had one, and he felt inferior. I remembered his graduation. I was sitting in the last row of the auditorium in my oldest dress, but my heart was swollen with pride. When his name was called, and he went on stage to receive his degree, I cried. I cried because we had made it there together, because all those years of sacrifice had been worth it, But now I looked at the man sitting across from me, in his $1,000 suit and his watch shining on his wrist, and I didn't recognize him. This wasn't my son. My son was the child who hugged me when I cried about his father. My son was the teenager who promised me that one day he would buy me a big house where I wouldn't have to worry about anything. When did that boy disappear? And in his place remained this stranger who looked at me as if I were a financial problem to be solved. I need to think about it, I finally said, my voice breaking. There's not much to think about, Mum, Michael replied coldly. We already made an appointment for you to visit the place next week. You just have to go and see it. I'm sure you'll like it. They weren't asking me. They were informing me. They had already made the decision for me. My opinion, my feelings, my wishes didn't matter. I just had to obey, as I had always done, as I had always been. The rest of the lunch was torture. Claire kept talking about their plans, about the perfect life they were building. Michael nodded and smiled, holding her hand across the table, looking at her with adoration. I could have been an old piece of furniture at that table, a lifeless object, voiceless, unimportant. When that nightmare finally ended, Michael paid the bill without even looking at the total. $180, more than I spend on food in a whole month. He stood up and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, as mechanical and cold as a greeting between strangers. We'll call you about the residence, he said. And please, Mom, try to look more presentable next time. This was very uncomfortable for everyone. Claire didn't even say goodbye. She walked away on Michael's arm, laughing at something he whispered in her ear, leaving me sitting there with my stained dress and my broken heart. I left the restaurant, walking like a sleepwalker. The sun had finally come out, and the city shone under its light. But I only saw darkness. I only felt cold. I took the bus back home. This time, no one offered me a seat. I travelled standing up, holding onto the rail, with tears finally rolling down my cheeks, and I couldn't stop them. People looked at me, but no one asked if I was all right. No one ever asks. I arrived at my apartment just as the sun was setting. The walls seemed greyer than ever. The ceiling was leaking in a corner where it had rained during the afternoon. I sat on my small, frayed sofa and looked at the photographs on the coffee table. Michael at 5 years old, smiling without teeth. Michael at 12, proud of his first school award. Michael at 18, the day of his graduation. Michael at 25, when he got his first important job. In all those photographs, I was by his side, smiling, hugging him, looking at him with infinite love. When did I stop being by his side? When did I become something to be ashamed of? When did my love become an unbearable burden for him? That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the noises of the city that never sleeps. I thought about the elderly woman I had helped on the street. I wondered if she was all right. I wondered if she had children. I wondered if her children loved her, or if they also saw her as a problem to be disposed of. I thought about Claire's words. Beggar. Homeless. As if my poverty were a moral defect. As if having sacrificed everything for my son were something to be ashamed of. I thought about Michael. His silence. His shame. His coldness. And I thought about the residence they were talking about. The nursing home where they wanted to hide me. Away from their sight. Away from their perfect life. Where I would just be another forgotten old woman waiting to die. Something began to grow inside me that night. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was something colder, clearer. It was the terrible and painful realization that my son was no longer mine. That maybe he never really was. That everything I had believed about love and family had been a beautiful illusion that had shattered on the marble floor of that elegant restaurant. I closed my eyes when the dawn began to paint the sky with colors. And in the darkness behind my eyelids, I saw clearly what I had to do. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know when yet. But I knew that something had to change, because I couldn't keep living like this, like a shadow, like an inconvenient memory, like something that needed to be hidden and forgotten. I was 72 years old, but I was still breathing. I was still thinking. I was still feeling. And no one, not even my own son, had the right to treat me as if I were already dead. The following days were the darkest of my life. I stayed in the apartment doing nothing but staring at the walls. I wasn't hungry. I didn't feel like showering. I didn't feel like living. Michael called me on Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded professional, distant, as if he were closing a business deal. "Mum, everything is set. On Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, you have an appointment to visit the residence. It's called Harmony House. You're going to love the facilities. Claire and I will pick you up at 9:30. He didn't ask if I wanted to go. He didn't ask how I felt after the humiliation at the restaurant. He just informed me, as one informs someone of an appointment with the dentist or the mechanic. "I don't know if I want to go," I said, my voice small. "Mum, don't start. We already paid the enrollment fee, $500, which are non-refundable. The least you can do is go see the place." $500. They had paid $500 to put me in a nursing home without even asking me first, without consulting me, without considering my feelings. "All right," I whispered. "I'll be there." He hung up without saying goodbye. I was left with the phone in my hand, listening to the dial tone, feeling as if that sound perfectly represented my relationship with my son. Dead, cold, empty. On Wednesday morning, someone knocked on my door. I opened it and found an elderly woman standing in the hallway. She was elegant in a discreet way. Perfectly styled grey hair, simple but good quality clothes, and her eyes. Her eyes were kind, truly kind. "Mrs. Audrey Cole?" she asked with a warm smile. "Yes," I replied, confused. "Who are you?" "My name is Marilyn Grant. We met last Saturday. You saved my life." It took me a moment to remember. The elderly woman on the street, the one who was having heart trouble. The reason I was late for that terrible lunch. "Oh, ma'am, how are you? Are you all right?" "Thanks to you, I am perfectly fine. The doctors told me that if I had waited a few more minutes, it would have been too late. You literally saved my life, Audrey." I felt tears well up in my eyes. It was nothing. Anyone would have done the same. Marilyn shook her head gently. "No, dear. Dozens of people walked past me that day. No one stopped. Only you. And I would like to thank you properly. May I come in?" I didn't know what to say. No one had been in my apartment for months. I was ashamed of how small it was, how old, how poor. But there was something about Marilyn that made me feel like she wouldn't judge me. I let her in. She looked around without any expression of contempt. She sat on my frayed sofa as if it were the most comfortable piece of furniture in the world. We talked for hours. I told her about Michael without planning to. The words just poured out of me like a river that had been contained for too long. I told her about the restaurant, about Claire, about the residence they wanted me to visit, about how I felt invisible and worthless. Marilyn listened in silence. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge me. She only listened with that complete attention that very few people offer in this world. When I finished talking, I felt exhausted, but also lighter, as if sharing that terrible weight had made it a little more bearable. "Audrey," Marilyn said, taking my hands in hers, I need to tell you something. When I looked into who you were so I could thank you, I discovered some things about your son and his fiancée. I felt a chill run down my spine. What things? I have contacts, friends in important places, because you need to know that I haven't always been an elderly woman who faints on the street. I worked for 40 years as an accountant in very important firms. I retired 10 years ago, but I maintain my connections. I didn't understand where she was going with this. Marilyn leaned forward, and her voice became more serious. I had someone look into Michael and Claire a bit, just out of curiosity at first. But what I discovered worries me a lot. Audrey, my heart started beating faster. What did you discover? Your husband, may he rest in peace, left you something more than that apartment. He left you a property, a piece of land on the outskirts of the city that is now worth a lot of money. A lot of money. Close to $200,000, according to current valuations. I stared at her, not understanding. My husband never told me about any land. I only knew about the apartment where we lived together, the apartment where I now live alone. The land is in your name, Audrey, but to sell it, you need to sign documents. And according to my sources, Michael has been trying to access those documents. He's been asking questions. He's been looking into how he could obtain legal power over your properties. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. It can't be. Michael wouldn't do that. Marilyn looked at me sadly. Audrey, think. Why do they suddenly want to put you in a residence? Why are they so insistent? Once you're there, once you sign the papers giving them power over your affairs because you're in a home, they could sell that land, and the money would go directly into Michael's account as your sole heir with legal power. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. My son. My own son. The child I had raised with so much love. He was planning to steal from me. He was planning to lock me up in a nursing home so he could keep my money. There's more, Marilyn continued softly. Claire has debts, many debts, credit cards maxed out, loans she can't pay. She needs that money desperately, and I believe she is the one pressuring Michael to do this. Everything started to make sense. The rush to get married, the insistence with the residents, the cruel words designed to make me feel useless and dependent. It was all part of a plan to take the only thing of value I had. What can I do? I whispered. I'm just an old woman. I don't have money for lawyers. I have no power against them. Marilyn squeezed my hands tightly. You are not alone, Audrey. I am going to help you. I owe you my life, and I won't let your son and that woman do this to you. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. I know you enough. I saw your heart when you knelt beside me on that street. I saw your kindness when you sacrificed your important meeting to help a stranger. That is all the information I need about who you really are. Tears rolled down my cheeks. For the first time in days, I felt something different from despair. I felt a small spark of hope. What do I have to do? I asked. First, you are going to go to that visit tomorrow. You are going to act normal. You are not going to tell them anything about what you know. You are going to listen to everything they say. You are going to observe everything. And if they try to make you sign anything at all, you call me immediately. Here is my number. She gave me a card with her phone number written in clear handwriting. I took it with trembling hands. Meanwhile, Marilyn continued, I'm going to contact a lawyer friend of mine, someone I trust completely. We are going to protect your properties. We are going to make sure no one can take anything from you without your consent. And we are going to find out exactly what Michael and Claire are planning. But why? I repeated. Why are you doing this for me? Marilyn stood up and looked at me with an expression I will never forget, a mixture of firmness and tenderness. Because I have children too, Audrey. 3 children who adore me and take care of me. And I cannot imagine the pain you must feel being betrayed by yours. No one deserves that, especially not someone with a heart as noble as yours. After Marilyn left, I sat on my sofa for hours staring at the card with her number. A stranger, a woman I had helped by chance, was doing more for me than my own son. That night, I was able to sleep for the first time in days. It wasn't a peaceful sleep, but at least it was sleep. And when I woke up on Thursday morning, something had changed inside me. I no longer felt like a helpless victim. I felt like someone who had options, like someone who had allies, like someone who could fight. I dressed carefully, the same brown dress, but this time I washed and ironed it better. I styled my hair. I put on makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a different woman. A woman who knew the truth. A woman who was ready to find out how far her son's betrayal would go. At 9:30, the doorbell rang. Michael and Claire had arrived. I opened the door, and there they were. Michael in an impeccable grey suit, and Claire in a cream-coloured dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. She looked me up and down with that fake smile I already knew too well. "Good morning, Audrey. I see you at least dressed better today, although you've worn that dress too many times, don't you think?" I took a deep breath. I remembered Marilyn's words. Act normal. Don't tell them anything. Observe everything. "Good morning," I replied in a calm voice. "I'm ready." Michael's car smelled of new leather and expensive perfume. I sat in the back seat like a child. They were in the front, holding hands, talking softly about things I couldn't hear. Occasionally, Claire would turn to look at me with that smile that didn't reach her eyes. The trip lasted 40 minutes. We left the city and drove into a greener, quieter area. Trees alongside the road. Large houses with well-kept gardens. Everything looked beautiful and peaceful, like a place where people come to die in silence. Harmony House appeared behind a tall iron fence. It was a huge white building with columns that tried to give it an elegant air. The gardens were perfectly maintained. There were benches under the trees, decorative fountains. Everything designed to make the place look like a resort and not what it really was. A gilded cage for seniors who are no longer convenient for their families. A woman greeted us at the entrance. Her name was Cynthia, and she had that artificial cheerfulness that people use when selling things no one really wants to buy. "Welcome to Harmony House. You must be Mrs. Audrey. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm sure you're going to love our facilities." She took me on an endless tour. Small rooms with single beds and cheap furniture, trying to look elegant. A large dining hall where seniors ate in silence, looking at their plates, lost in their own worlds. A TV room where other seniors dozed in front of a huge screen that no one was really watching. "We have activities every day," Cynthia said, with false enthusiasm. "Bingo on Tuesdays, crafts on Thursdays, visits from a priest on Sundays, and of course, 24-hour medical care." Michael and Claire walked behind us. I could hear them whispering to each other. When we passed a window, I saw them reflected in the glass. Claire was saying something to Michael in his ear, and he nodded with a serious expression. Cynthia took us to her office, a small space full of filing cabinets and diplomas on the walls. We sat in uncomfortable chairs across from her desk. She took out a thick folder full of papers. "Now, Mrs. Audrey, we need to talk about the practical aspects. Harmony House has different levels of care. The basic level costs $1,200 a month. It includes a shared room, 3 daily meals, and general supervision. $200. My pension was barely $400 a month. There was no way I could pay that. Of course, Cynthia continued, looking at Michael. We understand that many families need help with the costs. That's why we offer the option for a family member to legally take charge of our residents' finances. This allows for more efficient management of pensions, properties, and other assets. There it was, the trap. They wanted Michael to have total control of my money, my properties, the land I didn't even know I had. Michael leaned forward with a serious expression. Mum, Claire and I have talked a lot about this. We are willing to take care of all the expenses. You don't have to worry about a thing. We just need you to sign some documents that give us legal authority to manage your affairs while you are here. What kind of documents? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Claire answered before Michael. They're just formalities, Audrey. A power of attorney that allows Michael to pay your bills, manage your properties, that kind of thing. It's completely normal. All families do it. Liar. I could see the lie in her bright eyes. I could feel it in the heavy air of that office. Can I see the documents first? I asked. Something crossed Claire's face, impatience, irritation, but she quickly recovered. Of course. Cynthia, can you show Audrey the papers? Cynthia took several documents out of the folder, small print, legal terms that I didn't understand. Pages and pages of words that blurred in front of my tired eyes. I need time to read this, I said. It's a lot of paper. Michael sighed with barely concealed frustration. Mum, they're just formalities. The residence lawyer already reviewed everything. It's all in order. I would still like to take them and read them calmly. Maybe consult with someone. The silence that followed was tense and heavy. Claire and Michael looked at each other. I could see the silent communication between them, the barely contained panic. Audrey, Claire said in a harsher voice, I don't understand why you are being so difficult. Michael is trying to help you. We are offering to pay $1,200 a month so you can have a better life. The least you can do is trust us. I just want to understand what I'm signing, I replied with more firmness than I expected from myself. Michael stood up abruptly. You know what, Mum? Forget it. If you don't appreciate what we're trying to do for you, then I don't know why we bothered. He started walking toward the door. Claire followed him, but before leaving, she turned to me with a look that chilled my blood. You're an ungrateful old woman. Michael is killing himself working, and he still has to deal with a mother who doesn't understand what's best for her. But fine. Stay in your miserable apartment. Stay alone. We don't care. They left, leaving me sitting there in that cold office with Cynthia looking at me with an uncomfortable expression. Mrs. Audrey, she said after a moment, my apologies for that scene. If you change your mind about the documents, please call me. Here is my card. I took the card without saying anything. I felt dizzy, confused. But there was also something else. A strange clarity. I had seen their true faces. I had seen the panic when I refused to sign. I had confirmed what Marilyn had told me. How do I get home? I asked Cynthia in a small voice. She looked surprised. Your son left. Isn't he going to take you back? No, I replied simply. Cynthia made some calls. She finally arranged for one of Harmony House's maintenance employees to drive me back to the city. The trip was silent. The man was kind, but not talkative. He dropped me off in front of my building as the sun began to set. I climbed the stairs slowly. My legs were shaking. I didn't know if it was from exhaustion or from the adrenaline of what had happened. I entered my apartment and collapsed onto the sofa. My phone rang almost immediately. It was Michael. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. He called again, and again, and again. Finally, I answered. What do you want, Michael? His voice sounded different, soft, almost pleading. Mum, I'm so sorry. Claire was stressed. She didn't mean those things. Please understand that we just want what's best for you. More lies. I could hear them clearly now, as if someone had lifted a veil from my eyes, and I could finally see the truth. I need to rest, Michael. It's been a very long day. Mum, please don't ruin this. Just sign the papers, and everything will be easier. For everyone. Good night, Michael. I hung up before he could respond. The phone rang again, but I turned it off. I sat in the darkness of my apartment, listening to the noises of the city, the buses, the barking dogs, the neighbors' voices. I took Marilyn's card out of my purse. I looked at it for a long time before dialing her number. She answered on the second ring. Audrey, how did it go? I told her everything, every detail, the documents, the pressure, the lies, the way they abandoned me at Harmony House. Marilyn listened in silence. When I finished, her voice was firm and clear. First thing tomorrow, we go to my lawyer. We are going to protect everything that is yours, and we are going to find out exactly what else they are planning. Don't worry, Audrey, you are not going through this alone. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks, because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel completely helpless. For the first time, I had someone on my side. For the first time, there was hope that maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't end up being a victim of my own son's greed. On Friday morning, Marilyn arrived at my apartment at 8 o'clock. She brought a man in his 50s with her, tall, wearing glasses, and carrying a leather briefcase under his arm. His presence radiated seriousness and professionalism. Audrey, meet Leonard Palm. He's the best lawyer I know and a lifelong friend. I told him your situation and he has agreed to help you. Leonard shook my hand firmly, but also warmly. Mrs. Cole, it's an honor to meet you. Marilyn told me what you did for her. Anyone who saves my friend's life has my complete loyalty. We sat in my small living room. Leonard took documents out of his briefcase and a small recorder that he placed on the table. I need you to tell me everything from the beginning, he said in a calm voice. Every detail you remember, every conversation, every document they showed you. I spoke for over an hour. I told them about the lunch at the restaurant, Claire's words, Michael's silence, the visit to Harmony House, the documents they wanted me to sign, the way they abandoned me there when I refused. Leonard took notes constantly. His eyes grew darker as I spoke. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. This is worse than I thought, he finally said. What your son and his fiancée are trying to do is technically legal if you sign those documents voluntarily, but the deception, the manipulation, the psychological pressure, all of that crosses very serious ethical lines. What can I do? I asked, my voice breaking. First, we are going to secure your properties. Today, we are going to the notary's office to sign documents that protect that land. No one is going to be able to touch it without your explicit consent. Second, we are going to investigate Michael and Claire's finances further. I need to know exactly what they are planning. How are we going to do that? Marilyn asked. Leonard smiled in a way that wasn't exactly reassuring. I have my resources. Give me 2 days. We left for the notary's office in Marilyn's car. It was an elegant but discreet vehicle. On the way, she held my hand. Everything is going to be all right, Audrey. You are not alone in this anymore. At the notary's office, I signed documents that protected my land. Leonard explained every page, every clause, every legal term, until I understood perfectly what I was doing. It was so different from how Michael and Claire had tried to pressure me to sign without reading. When we left there, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. At least that part was safe. They couldn't steal from me without my knowing it. The next 2 days were strange. Michael called constantly. He left messages that were increasingly desperate. First trying to sound casual, then worried, finally almost pleading. "Mum, answer, please. We need to talk. Claire is very sorry about what she said. We can start over. We just want to help you." I didn't return any calls. I followed Leonard's advice. Complete silence while he investigated. On Sunday afternoon, Leonard appeared at my apartment with a thick folder under his arm. His expression was serious. Marilyn arrived minutes later. "Sit down, both of you," Leonard said. "This is difficult." My heart started beating faster. "What did you discover?" Leonard opened the folder and took out several documents. "Audrey, your son is in serious financial trouble. He has debts of over $100,000, investment loans that went wrong, money he lent to friends who never paid him back, his expensive lifestyle that he can't sustain." "But he always seems to have so much money," I said, confused. "It's all a facade," Leonard replied. "The car is financed, and he's behind on the payments. The luxury apartment is rented, and he owes 3 months. The expensive suits are bought with credit cards that are maxed out." I felt everything spinning around me. My son, my successful son, was ruined. "But there's more," Leonard continued in a somber voice. "Claire is worse. She has debts of almost $80,000, credit cards, personal loans. She owes money to lenders who aren't exactly legal, dangerous people." "Why are they getting married then?" I asked. Leonard looked at me sadly. "Because they are desperate. The wedding they are planning is all a lie. They already took out loans using that wedding as an excuse. Money they need to pay urgent debts. But the real plan was to get access to your land. By selling that property, they could get close to $200,000, enough to pay all their debts and start over." "And I was the obstacle," I whispered. "That's why they wanted to lock me up in Harmony House." "Exactly. Once you were there, under their legal guardianship, they could sell everything without you being able to do anything. And they would probably leave you there forever, paying only the bare minimum, while they lived on your money." Tears began to roll down my cheeks. My own son, planning to steal from me, planning to lock me up, planning to leave me to die alone in a horrible place just to save his life of lies. "There's something else," Leonard said, taking out another document. "I found this in the public records. Michael already tried to sell the land 2 months ago. He forged your signature on preliminary documents. The sale wasn't completed because the buyer requested additional verification and discovered that the signature didn't match. But Michael tried. He tried to commit fraud." "That's a felony," Marilyn said in a harsh voice. Leonard nodded. "A serious felony. Forgery of documents, attempted fraud. If we present this to the authorities, Michael could go to prison for several years." "No." The word came out of my mouth before I could think it. "I can't do that. He's my son." Leonard and Marilyn looked at me with expressions of understanding, but also concern. "Audrey," Leonard said gently, "I understand he's your son, but he was willing to destroy your life, to steal everything from you, to leave you abandoned. You can't protect him from the consequences of his actions." "He's right," Marilyn added, taking my hand. "I know it hurts, but you have to protect yourself." I remained silent for a long time, thinking, remembering, seeing in my mind the little boy Michael had been, but also seeing the cruel man he had become. What about Claire? I finally asked. You said she owes money to dangerous people. Leonard nodded gravely. I've heard rumors. People are looking for her. People who don't accept excuses. If she doesn't pay soon, things could get very ugly. How much time does she have? A month? Maybe less. Then in a month, she's going to pressure Michael even more, Marilyn said. They're going to become more desperate, more dangerous. Leonard leaned forward. Audrey, I need you to understand something. You can't face them alone. You can't simply tell them you know what they're planning. Desperate people do desperate things. We need a plan that protects you but also stops them permanently. What kind of plan? I asked. Leonard looked at Marilyn and then back at me. We are going to give them enough rope to hang themselves. We are going to make them think you are giving in, that you are going to sign the documents, and when they try to complete the fraud, we are going to have everything documented, irrefutable evidence, and then we are going to expose them. But that means I have to keep acting like I don't know anything, I said. Exactly. You are going to have to look them in the face and pretend. It's going to be difficult. It's going to hurt. But it's the only way to ensure they can never harm you again. I looked at the documents spread across my table. The evidence of my son's betrayal. The proof that everything I had believed about him was an illusion. All right, I finally said, my voice firmer than I expected. Let's do this. But I want one thing to be clear. I don't want revenge. I just want justice. I just want them to stop. And I want my son to understand what he has done. Leonard smiled approvingly. That is exactly what we are going to do. And Audrey, I want you to know something. I've worked on elder abuse cases for 20 years. I've seen children do terrible things to their parents. But I have never seen a mother with the strength you have. You are going to get through this, and you are going to come out stronger. That night, after Leonard and Marilyn left, I stayed awake staring at the photographs of Michael, the smiling child he had been, the promising teenager, the successful young man. Somewhere along the way, that boy was lost. He had been replaced by a man who valued money more than his own mother, a man capable of lying, manipulating, and stealing. But I was still breathing, I was still thinking, and now I had allies. I had a plan, and I had something Michael had completely underestimated. I had the will to fight. On Monday morning, I called Michael. My voice was shaking, but not from fear, but from the performance I was about to begin. Leonard had prepared me. He had told me exactly what to say, how to sound vulnerable, how to make them believe I had finally given up. Michael answered on the second ring. His voice sounded anxious. Mum, thank God you called. I've been so worried. Michael, I need to talk to you. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about Harmony House, about the documents. There was a silence on the other end. I could hear his held breath. And, Michael, I swallowed. You're right. I'm old. I live alone. Maybe it would be better to be in a place where they take care of me, where I don't have to worry about anything. I heard Claire in the background asking something. Michael replied in whispers that I couldn't quite understand. Then his voice returned, softer, more manipulative. Mum, I'm so happy to hear that. Really, we just want what's best for you. Claire and I have been so worried. Liar. But I kept my voice small and broken. There's just one thing. Those documents you wanted me to sign. They're very complicated. I'd like you to come and explain them to me calmly, here in my house, where I feel more at ease. Of course, Mum. Of course. We can come today if you want. This afternoon at 4 o'clock. All right, I'll wait for you. I hung up and immediately called Leonard. I took the bait. They are coming this afternoon. Perfect. Marilyn and I will be in your neighbor, Mrs. Eleanor's apartment. She has already agreed to help us. We will be able to hear everything. And remember, Audrey, if you feel in danger at any point, just say the keyword we agreed on. I understand. You are very brave. This will be over soon. The hours until 4 o'clock in the afternoon were the longest of my life. I checked the apartment 1,000 times. Leonard had installed small, hidden microphones in the living room. They were so small, no one would notice them. Everything Michael and Claire said would be recorded. Mrs. Eleanor, my 80-year-old neighbor, whom I barely knew, turned out to be an unexpected ally. When Marilyn explained the situation to her, she was so outraged that she insisted on helping. Now it gave me strength to know they were on the other side of the wall, listening, protecting me. At 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath. I opened the door. Michael and Claire came in smiling. He brought a cheap bouquet of flowers from the supermarket. She carried her designer purse and a folder with documents. Both acted as if the past few weeks of cruelty had never happened. "Mom, it's good to see you," Michael said, kissing my cheek. "You look good." Claire sat on my sofa as if it were hers. "Audrey, dear, I'm so glad you reconsidered. We really just want what's best for you." I offered them coffee. I had prepared it especially strong and bitter, but they drank it without complaining. They were too anxious to get to the documents. "All right, Mum," Michael said, taking papers out of the folder. "These are the documents we talked about. They're simple, really. This first one is the power of attorney that allows me to manage your bank accounts and pay your expenses." I read the documents slowly, very slowly. I could feel their impatience growing. The paper said exactly what Michael had described, but Leonard had taught me to read between the lines. This power would give him total control over every cent I had. "And this other one," Michael continued, handing me another document, "is simply an authorization for me to make medical decisions on your behalf if something happens to you." But there was more text, small text that talked about complete guardianship, about decisions about where I would live, about access to all my properties. It was everything they needed to control me completely. "And this last one," Claire said with a smile that was too wide, "is just an inventory of your properties, so everything is in order." I looked at the document. There it was. The land my husband had left me. The land I wasn't supposed to know about. It was listed with its estimated value, $200,000. "I didn't know I had this land," I said in a confused voice, just as I had rehearsed with Leonard. Michael and Claire exchanged quick glances. "Oh yeah," Michael said, trying to sound casual. "Dad left it to you years ago. It's in your name, but you've never used it. That's probably why you don't remember it." More lies. My husband had told me about that land on his deathbed. He had made me promise never to sell it, because he dreamed that one day we could build a little house there for our old age. It was his last gift to me, his way of ensuring I would be all right when he was no longer around. "And what are you going to do with this land?" I asked, with feigned innocence. Claire answered too quickly. "Nothing, Audrey. We just need to have it documented. For insurance, for taxes, that kind of boring thing." Liar. I saw the greed shining in her eyes. I saw her fingers tapping impatiently on her knee. She needed that money. She needed it desperately. I took a pen. I held it over the first document. My hand was shaking. It wasn't acting. It was really shaking because I was about to do something that could go very wrong. "Before I sign," I said in a soft voice, "I want to ask you something." It's just curiosity. Michael tensed visibly. Sure, Mum. What do you want to know? This land is worth a lot of money, $200,000. If I signed these papers, you could sell it without me knowing, couldn't you? The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking the seconds. I could hear my own heart pounding in my ears. Mum, Michael said in a tense voice, why are you asking that? Of course we wouldn't sell anything without consulting you. But you could, I insisted. Legally, with these documents, you could do it. Claire stood up abruptly. Audrey, what is going on here? I thought you had decided to trust us. I just want to understand, I replied, keeping my voice calm. I want to understand if my son is really helping me or if he is robbing me. Michael's mask finally dropped. His face turned red. Mum, how dare you? After everything we've done for you, after offering to pay for Harmony House, after wasting our time trying to help you. Wasting their time. As if I were an obligation, a nasty chore on their to-do list. You know what? Claire said in an icy voice. I'm done with this. Michael, tell your mother the truth. Tell her we're ruined, that we owe money to everyone, that we need that land to save ourselves. Tell her that if we don't get that money in 2 weeks, very dangerous people are going to come looking for us. Michael looked at her in horror. Claire, shut up. But she didn't shut up. She was out of control. All the pressure, all the desperation, finally exploding. Why should I shut up? She's a selfish old woman who has $200,000 buried in land she doesn't even use while we're sinking. It's her fault. It's all her fault. My fault. I was to blame for them spending money they didn't have. I was to blame for them living lives of lies. I was to blame for them being greedy and stupid. Mom, Michael said in a pleading voice now. Please. It's true. We're desperate. We need your help. Just sign the papers. We'll sell the land. We'll pay off our debts. And we promise you, we'll take care of you. We'll take you to Harmony House and visit you every week. More lies. But these lies were being recorded. Every word, every confession, every threat. I stood up slowly. Michael, Claire, I want you to leave my house. You're not going to sign? Claire asked in a dangerous voice. No, I'm not going to sign anything. I'm not going to let you steal from me. I'm not going to let you lock me up. And I'm not going to keep being the dumb mother you can manipulate. Michael took a step toward me. His face was transformed by rage. Mom, don't be stupid. That money could save us. It could save your own son, and you refuse out of selfishness. Selfishness. He called me selfish after I had sacrificed my whole life for him, after I had skipped meals so he could eat, after I had worked until my body ached so he could study. Get out of my house, I repeated in a louder voice. Now! Claire grabbed her purse violently. You're a horrible old woman. I hope you die alone in this miserable apartment. I hope no one finds you for weeks. They left, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I stood there, trembling, with tears rolling down my cheeks. The door opened seconds later. It was Leonard, Marilyn, and Eleanor. The three of them hugged me as I finally let myself fall, as I finally allowed the pain to come out. Did you record everything? I asked between sobs. Leonard smiled. Every word, every confession, every threat. Audrey, you've just gotten all the evidence we need. Now comes the final part. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my sofa staring at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened. Claire's words echoed in my head. I hope you die alone. My own son had been there, had heard those words, and hadn't said anything to defend me. Leonard arrived early the next morning with more documents. Audrey, I need you to be prepared for what's coming. We are going to act fast before they can do anything more desperate. What are we going to do? I asked. We are going to send them the documents they need to see, the proofs, the recordings, everything. But we are not going to do it privately. They will be officially notified. And several important people are going to receive copies of all the evidence at the same time. His job, I whispered. His friends. Leonard nodded with a serious expression. Michael works at an investment firm. His reputation is everything. When his bosses find out he tried to commit fraud, that he forged documents, that he tried to steal from his own mother, he won't be able to keep that job. No one in the financial sector will want to work with someone like that. And Claire. Claire has creditors waiting. When they find out the plan to get the money failed, they will act. Probably in very unpleasant ways. I felt sick for a moment. Despite everything, Michael was still my son. The idea of destroying his life hurt me. But then I remembered his cold eyes, his silence in the restaurant, his willingness to lock me up in a nursing home to steal from me. And the pain turned into determination. Let's do it, I said in a firm voice. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of activity. Leonard prepared packages with all the evidence, the recordings of our conversations, the documents showing the previous attempt at fraud, the financial records proving their debts. Everything organized meticulously, professionally, devastatingly. On Wednesday morning, everything was ready. Leonard sent the packages by special courier that required a signature. One for Michael at his office, one for Claire at her apartment, one for Michael's boss, one for Claire's most important creditors, and copies for the corresponding authorities. Now we just wait, Leonard said. We didn't have to wait long. At 11 o'clock in the morning, my phone started ringing. It was Michael. I didn't answer. He called 10 times in a row. Then the text messages started. Mum, what did you do? Mum, answer, please. This is going to ruin us. You can't do this to us. I deleted every message without reading them completely. Leonard had advised me not to respond to anything, to let the consequences of their actions fall upon them without interference. At noon, Marilyn arrived with news. Audrey, my contact at the investment firm, just called me. Michael has been suspended. He's under internal investigation. They will probably fire him before the end of the week. I felt a weight in my chest. It's the right thing, I told myself. It's what had to happen. In the afternoon, Leonard brought more information. Claire is desperate. She's been calling everyone she knows, asking for money. No one wants to lend her any. Everyone already knows she's a terrible risk. Michael's calls continued all day. 50, 100. I stopped counting. My voicemail filled up with messages that were increasingly desperate, increasingly pleading, increasingly full of rage. In the evening, I finally listened to one of the messages. Michael's voice sounded destroyed. Mum, please. They're going to fire me. Claire left me. She says this is all my fault. The creditors are threatening her. People are looking for her. Mum, you ruined our lives. How could you do this to us? I'm your son, your only son. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I listened. But they weren't tears of regret. They were tears for the son I had lost a long time ago, for the child I had loved and who no longer existed. On Thursday, Michael showed up at my building. He banged on my door for half an hour, yelling, "Let me in! We need to talk! You can't do this to me!" Eleanor, my neighbour, threatened to call the police. Michael finally left, but not before shouting one last thing. "You're a cruel old woman. I will never forgive you for this. You are dead to me." dead to him. As if I hadn't been dead to him since the moment he decided to rob me, since the moment he allowed Claire to humiliate me, since the moment he chose money over his own mother. On Friday, Leonard came with the final report. Michael has been officially fired. His reputation in the financial sector is destroyed. No one is going to hire him. Claire disappeared. According to my sources, she fled the city to escape her creditors. She left Michael with all the debts. And him? I asked. What is he going to do? Leonard shrugged. He will have to file for bankruptcy, start over, probably get a job that pays much less than before, live in a much more modest place. Basically, he will have to learn to live in the real world. I felt empty. There was no satisfaction in this. There was no victory. There was only pain. The pain of seeing my son fall. The pain of knowing that our relationship was broken beyond any repair. But there was also something else. There was peace. The peace of knowing that I no longer had to live in fear, that my home was safe, that my properties were protected, that no one could lock me up in a place I didn't choose. On Saturday, I received a letter. It was from Michael, handwritten on crumpled paper. The handwriting was shaky. Mum, you took everything from me. My job, my fiancée, my future. I hope you're happy. I hope the money is worth more to you than your own son. I will never understand how you could do this to me. I hate you. I hate you with every fibre of my being. I wish you had never been my mother. I read the letter 3 times. Every word was like a nail in my heart. But behind the rage, behind the hatred, I could see the truth. Michael still didn't understand. He still didn't comprehend that he had caused all of this, that his decisions, his lies, his greed had led him here. Maybe one day he would understand. Maybe one day when he hit rock bottom, when he had no one else to blame, he would finally look in the mirror and see who was really responsible for his downfall. Or maybe he would never understand. Maybe he would live the rest of his life blaming me, hating me, telling anyone who would listen that his cruel mother had destroyed him. I burned the letter in the kitchen sink. I watched the words of hatred turn into ashes. I watched the paper twist and blacken until there was nothing left but grey dust. That night, Marilyn and Eleanor came to my apartment. They brought food, cheap wine, and company. The 3 of us sat in my small living room, 3 elderly women who had survived so many things in life. "How do you feel?" Marilyn asked. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "Empty, sad, but also free. It's strange to feel both things at the same time." Eleanor took my hand with her wrinkled, age-spotted hand. "You did the right thing, Audrey. No mother should have to endure what your son did to you. No woman should have to live in fear of her own family." "But he's still my son," I whispered. "He was your son," Marilyn corrected gently. "The child you raised died somewhere along the way. The man who remains is not the person you knew, and it is not your responsibility to save him from the consequences of his own decisions." We drank wine. We talked about other things, about their lives, their stories, the years they had lived. And for the first time in weeks, for the first time in months, I laughed. I really laughed. It wasn't a big or scandalous laugh. It was soft and sincere. But it was real. When they left, I was left alone in my apartment. The silence no longer felt oppressive. It felt calm, peaceful. I looked around and saw my home with new eyes. It was small. It was old. But it was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could force me to leave it. I went to bed that night, and for the first time in a long time, I slept deeply. No nightmares, no waking up startled. Just a dark, restorative sleep that left me feeling that maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. But there was still one more thing to do. One thing I needed to do to close this chapter of my life completely. I needed to take control not just of my safety, but of my future. I needed to decide what came next. Because surviving wasn't enough. I wanted to live. Truly live. And that meant making changes that would have terrified the Audrey of a month ago. But I was no longer that woman. I was no longer the quiet, obedient mother who accepted everything without protest. I was someone new, someone stronger, someone who had finally learned that loving yourself was not selfishness. It was survival. 2 weeks after we sent the evidence packages, Leonard called me with important news. "Audrey, you need to come to my office. There are developments you need to know about." Marilyn accompanied me. The drive in her car had become familiar. She had become more than an ally. She had become my friend. The sister I never had. Leonard's office was in an elegant downtown building. He greeted us with a serious expression, but there was something in his eyes, something that looked like satisfaction. "Sit down, both of you. I have a lot to tell you." He took out a new folder and opened it on his desk. "Michael has officially filed for bankruptcy. He had to declare. He lost his apartment, his car, everything. He is now living in a rented room in Queens. He works as a salesman in a cell phone store. He earns less than $2,000 a month." I felt a pang in my chest. My son, who had been so proud, so boastful, was now living the life I had always lived, the life he had despised. "Claire," Leonard continued, "was found by her creditors. I won't go into detail, but let's just say she had to make very unfavorable arrangements to pay what she owed. She lost everything. Her designer clothes, her jewelry, everything was sold. She now works cleaning houses." The irony was almost cruel. The woman who had called me a beggar was now doing the same job I had done for years, the job she had considered so inferior. "But there's more," Leonard said with a small smile. "The investment firm where Michael worked decided to investigate further. They discovered he had been embezzling client funds. Not large amounts, but enough to constitute a crime. They filed formal charges." "Is he going to prison?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Probably not. It's his first offense, and the amounts are relatively small. But he will have a criminal record. Probably probation, community service, and he will never be able to work in finance again. His career is completely destroyed." Part of me felt like I should feel bad. But the truth was that I only felt a kind of cold, distant justice. Michael had chosen this path. He had chosen greed over honesty, money over family, and now he was paying the price. "There's something else," Leonard said, taking out another document. "Michael tried to sell information about your land to a development company. He promised them he could get them the property at a good price. He lied, saying he had your authorization. The company investigated and discovered it was a lie. Now they are suing him for damages." "How much?" Marilyn asked. $50,000, money he obviously doesn't have. Michael was sinking further and further, and I had stopped feeling the need to save him. I had stopped feeling that it was my responsibility to rescue him from the consequences of his own actions. "What about the original attempted fraud?" I asked. "When he forged my signature?" Leonard nodded. "The authorities are prosecuting that case separately. It's a more serious offense. Forgery of legal documents. Attempted real estate fraud. If convicted, he could face up to 3 years in prison." 3 years? My son could spend 3 years in prison. The woman I had been 2 months ago would have rushed to help him. She would have sold the land. She would have paid his debts. She would have done whatever it took to save him. But I was no longer that woman. "I want the legal process to take its course," I said in a firm voice. "I am not going to intervene. I am not going to drop the charges. He has to face what he did." Leonard looked at me with respect. "You are stronger than most people could be in your situation." "It's not strength," I replied. "It's survival. If I save him now, he will never learn, and I will never be safe. There will always be a next time. There will always be another emergency, another debt, another reason why he needs my money." Marilyn squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, Audrey." 2 days later, I received another letter from Michael. This one was different. The handwriting was less shaky. The tone was less full of hatred. But the words were still devastating. "Mum, I know I ruined everything. I know I made terrible decisions, but I need you to understand that I was desperate. Claire pressured me every day. The creditors threatened. I felt like I was drowning. I don't know when I lost sight of who I was, when money became more important than everything else. Now I have lost everything. My job, my house, my future. And worst of all, I lost my mother. I lost the only person who was always there for me, the only person who loved me unconditionally. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know you will probably never forgive me. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I treated you the way I did. I'm sorry I allowed Claire to humiliate you. I'm sorry I tried to steal from you. I'm sorry for everything. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking you for help. I'm just asking you to know that your son, the real Michael, the child you raised, is still here somewhere. Lost, scared, regretful. I love you, Mum. I've always loved you, even if it doesn't look like it, even if my actions say otherwise." I read the letter sitting on my sofa, with tears rolling down my cheeks. They were beautiful words. Words that the old Audrey would have desperately wanted to believe. Words that would have been enough for me to run to save him. But now I could see what they really were. They were manipulation, more subtle than before, more gentle, but manipulation nonetheless. Michael had learned that rage didn't work, so now he was trying guilt, with false remorse, with declarations of love designed to make me feel obligated to help him. I put the letter away in a drawer without answering it. Maybe one day, years later, when he had truly changed, when he had done the real work of transforming into a better person, we could talk. But that day wasn't today. That day might never come. The following week, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered with caution. "Mrs. Cole, this is Detective Marcus Hill from the Fraud Division. I need you to come in and give a formal statement about the case against your son." I went to the police station accompanied by Leonard. It was a grey, cold building that smelled of old coffee and paper. Detective Hill was a middle-aged man with tired eyes who had seen too much. He asked me questions for 2 hours. About the land, about Michael's attempts to access my properties, about the forgery, about everything. I answered every question with honesty, with clarity, without protecting my son. When we finished, the detective looked at me with a serious expression. "Mrs. Cole, I want you to know what you are doing requires extraordinary courage. Most parents in your situation protect their children no matter what. The fact that you are willing to testify says a lot about your character." "It's not courage," I replied. "It's necessity. If I don't do this, if I don't stop him now, he's never going to stop. And I'm never going to be safe." The detective nodded. "I've seen many cases like this. Too many. And they always end the same. Children steal from parents. Parents forgive. Children steal again. It's a cycle that is only broken when someone has the courage to say enough. You are saying enough. That makes you stronger than most. We left the station as the sun began to set. The city looked different now, less threatening, less dark. Or maybe it was I who had changed, who saw the world with different eyes. Leonard drove me home. Before I got out of the car, he stopped me with a gentle hand on my arm. Audrey, the legal process is going to take time. Months, probably. There will be hearings. There will be difficult moments. But I want you to know that you are not alone. Marilyn and I are going to be with you every step of the way. Thank you, Leonard, for everything. It's my honor. Truly. It's not every day one has the privilege of helping someone as brave as you. I went up to my apartment as night fell over the city. I prepared a simple dinner, chicken soup and bread. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, enjoying the peaceful silence of my home. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before answering. Mrs. Cole, Claire speaking. My body immediately tensed. What do you want? Her voice sounded different, smaller, broken. I just want to apologize. I know it means nothing now. I know the damage is done, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I was cruel. I was terrible to you, and I have no excuse. I didn't answer. I just waited. I've lost everything, she continued. Everything I thought mattered. And now I realize that it never really mattered. The money, the clothes, the status. It was all so empty, so useless. I still didn't say anything. Michael and I are done. He blames me for everything. Maybe he's right. I pressured him. I desperately needed the money. I convinced him that stealing from his own mother was the only solution. There was a long silence. I don't expect your forgiveness, she finally said. I just wanted you to know that I know I was wrong. Completely wrong. She hung up before I could reply. I stood there with the phone in my hand, looking at the dark screen. Maybe Claire was truly sorry. Maybe she had learned something from all this. Or maybe it was just another manipulation. Another way of trying to gain sympathy. It no longer mattered. She was no longer my problem. Michael was no longer my problem. My only problem now was myself. How did I want to live the rest of my life? What did I want to do with my newly won freedom? And finally, after 72 years, I was ready to find out. 6 months later, my life was unrecognizable. I sold the land my husband had left me, not out of desperation or pressure. I sold it because I decided to, because it was my decision, my choice. And I got $205,000 for it. With that money, I did something I never imagined I would do. I bought a small house in upstate New York, a house with a garden where I now plant flowers every morning. Red roses, sunflowers, white daisies that shine under the sun. I also bought a car, nothing luxurious, a small, used vehicle that cost me $8,000. And at 72, I learned to drive. Marilyn patiently taught me for weeks until I finally got my license. The first time I drove alone to the grocery store, I cried tears of happiness. That simple freedom of going wherever I wanted without depending on anyone was something I had never experienced. It was intoxicating. The trial against Michael ended 2 months ago. He was found guilty of attempted fraud and forgery of documents. He was given 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and is prohibited from working in anything related to finance for 10 years. I didn't go to the sentencing. Leonard represented me. I didn't need to see my son's face that day. I didn't need to carry that image. Michael has written to me 3 times since then, letters that arrive in my mailbox every month. I don't open them. I keep them in a box in the closet. Maybe one day I'll read them, Maybe one day I'll be ready to hear what he has to say. But that day is not today. Marilyn and Eleanor have become my family. We have dinner together twice a week. We go to the movies. We visit museums. We do the simple and beautiful things that friends do. The things I never had time to do when my whole life revolved around being a mother. With part of the money, I created something special. Something that gives meaning to everything I went through. Together with Marilyn, we established a small aid fund for older women who are being abused or manipulated by their families. We pay for legal counsel for them. We help them find safe housing. We give them the support I was lucky enough to find. We have already helped 12 women, 12 elderly women who were being robbed, manipulated, or abandoned by their own children. And every time I see their relieved faces, every time I see them regain their dignity, I feel that all the pain was worth it. Today is a Saturday morning. I am sitting in my garden drinking real coffee, not the watery kind I used to drink. The sun shines warmly on my face. I can hear birds singing in the trees. My little house is behind me, painted a cheerful yellow that I chose myself. I am 72. My body aches, my knees creak when I walk. My hair is completely grey, but I am alive. Truly alive for the first time in decades. I learned something important in these months. I learned that love does not mean sacrificing everything, that being a mother does not mean ceasing to be a person, that protecting yourself is not selfishness, it is dignity, it is self-respect, it is survival. I learned that you can love someone and still walk away from them if they hurt you. That blood does not obligate you to tolerate abuse. That it is okay to say no. It is okay to say enough. It is okay to choose yourself. My son is alive. He is working. He is paying for his mistakes. Maybe one day he will truly change. Maybe one day he will become the man I always dreamed he would be. And if that day comes, if he ever comes to me with true remorse and genuine transformation, maybe I can forgive him. But my forgiveness will not mean that I forgot. It will not mean that things go back to how they were. Because I am not the same woman. I will never again be that silent, obedient mother who accepted everything without protest. I am Audrey Cole. I am 72. I survived the betrayal of my only son. I survived the attempt to steal everything I had. And I didn't just survive. I prospered. I stand up and walk toward my car. Today, I am going to visit a woman who contacted us last week. Her daughters want to put her in a nursing home to sell her house. They want to convince her that she is too old to live alone. They want her money. But she is not alone. I will be there. Marilyn will be there. Leonard will be there. And together we are going to protect her just as I was protected. Because that is what we do now. We protect those who have no voice. We defend those who were taught all their lives not to defend themselves. We show them that it is never too late to choose yourself. It is never too late to say enough. I get into my car and turn on the engine. The radio plays softly, a song I don't know, but that makes me smile. I back out of my driveway and drive through the streets of my quiet neighborhood. The future stretches before me like an open road. I don't know how many years I have left. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But I know this with absolute certainty. I am no longer afraid. I no longer feel invisible. I am no longer a burden to anyone. I am free. And that freedom, that recovered dignity, is worth more than any money. It is worth more than any broken relationship. It is worth more than everything. Thank you for listening to my story. If you are also going through something similar, if someone in your family is hurting you, I want you to know this. You are not alone. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity. And it is never, ever too late to choose yourself. Life can begin again at any age, even at 72. Even when you thought there was no more hope, there is always hope. Always.